Hi everyone, this is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching with today's video, which I hope you will enjoy. I have really enjoyed doing this and I've done it a little different way. And you're going to see more today of setting this up than me on the sewing machine. But you're really going to enjoy this, I think. Stay tuned. The source of today's quilt is Quiltmaker, January, February of 2023 at page 59. And I want to remind people that in a lot of the magazines that you can look at the very beginning, if it's not one that's for sale right now and you can find back issues, just read the fine print where it talks about the editors and things in the front. This is fun. I couldn't believe it. And I broke my own rule. You know, my rule was that I always make a sample. I make a sample. Well, that didn't happen this time because when I looked at this quilt, I said, what a pop of color. And what would I do with one block? And I said, well, I don't really care because I know that I have enough of each of the colors. I didn't have to go to the store, so that was lucky. And I guess that probably helped me to keep going. But this is it. This is the cover. It's got 12-inch blocks. There are going to be 25 of them. And the quilt ends up being 72 by 72, which is going to take a backing of 4 7/8 yards. I always like to look at that to know how big a project I'm getting into, because when it starts getting into those 7 yards and 8 yards, I go, oh, well, let me think about this a little bit. But this one, I just jumped into it, and I actually just started cutting. You won't believe, since I wasn't going to make just one block, I just started cutting and cutting. And then I started sewing and sewing. And then I would go back and do some cutting and back and forth. So we've got the beginning. We have, this is what's neat, there's 2.5 yards of the dark color, which is black in this one, 1 7/8 yards of a cream or a white, and 3 yards of red. And I'm not going to make you think you're going to start without seeing a sample, but this is part of the actual quilt. And they're about 5 or 6 rows. They're arranged diagonally. That's why you're seeing this corner right here, because this was my first row. And I've already added my pieces on the side, the big triangles. Now these are, I'm just going to tell you so I don't forget, this is where that bias, there's going to be some bias in this. And that's what you want to watch out for. Handle those very carefully after you cut them, set them up. Watch for that edge around the back. And how this is going to go is, here's your center, and that's a half triangle square. And then here are a bunch of little ones around the outside. These are triangle squares. And then you just have some squares. And the thing is, it takes 225 of the black and red and 225 of the white and red. And I thought, yeah, that's a little extreme. Maybe I really need to think this over again. But I thought, no, I think I got a better handle on triangle squares now. And I am going to do this. And yesterday I actually finished the 225th of most of the red and then of the black ones. All right, and then if you look, they're arranged with the black connected to the black, and you can see how they're laid out. That's going to be important. The red repeats it, except they're facing out the other direction. And what I did is I sewed the sides together first, which is really normal, add it on, and then did the left side and added it to the white. And then I had my long strips, and I put one at the top, and then the black goes down at the bottom, and that creates your great block. And this makes me of some school colors. and makes me think of college colors. And I thought, gosh, if I ever did this again, George's colors are red, white, or cream and black. And I would take some of that college fabric and pop it in this box right here to give it a look. It might make a really cute picture. But that's the square that ends up to be 12 inches, and there are going to be 25 of those. And I'm going to start with the center block in just a minute, but I want to share something with you that really probably saved my quilt because it was red. It is really a deep red, and I ran it through the wash like I usually do, but with a cool water. And when I dried it, my dryer sheet was pinky red, and I thought, oh, this isn't going to work. Because somebody will have to wash this quilt, I bet, sometime, because it's going to be throw size. And so I remembered that I had a box of Shout color catchers. I don't work for them or anything. I remembered I had, and I thought, I hope I have something in that box. It's not just empty. Because here's this is what the catchers got when I put them in the washing machine. And it said you could use 2 or 3. And I said, well, I've only got 2. So I put those in there with the red and held my breath. Because when I saw that come out, I said, have I got it all? Well, this was the second time in the dryer with a new dryer sheet. And you can see no pinky, no red. And I thought, oh, great, now I'm going to keep cutting because this is going good. The center block is a half triangle square. And you start with an 8 7/8 inch square, cream and black. And one of the things to me, like this one looks like it's, it's not touching as close. And in some of these, I finally got where I would lay the black fabric and the cream fabric on top of each other and cut them out together. Then I didn't have to worry about turning the fabric or anything. And on this one, there's going to be one diagonal line. And I did it with magic marker. Don't you do magic marker with yours? Mechanical pencil works great. And then I've got my stitching lines. Now, you may be very good at this or have equipment really good at it, but you go out 1/4 of an inch, and that's going to be your stitching line. Well, for some reason, even when I think I'm doing 1/4 of a line and I have a line drawn, it doesn't come out exactly right. So what I've started doing was actually going almost at an 1/8 or a little bit more and going close to this cut line, but don't make sure there's enough for a seam out there, but not going all the way out to 1/4. And I just got where I did that every time. Well, that means that you've got one extra thing that you've got to do. And I'll show you on a smaller sample in a minute. But you want to do this because you're going to need, you'll end up making 26, and you need 25 for the quilt. And here's my block. And the large one is easy. So you just sew it, open it up, and look at it that it's squared up. There was no suggestion about exactly what size that was going to be, but that came out okay. The second piece is working on those 2 colored half triangle squares. This is the one where you get into a bunch. And what's nice about it is it uses that 8 at a time triangle squares. And that was really nice. So I have 29 pairs of the red and the black. And here again, if you can lay them on top of each other and then cut them, you're not going to have to worry about turning them or trying them to get them to go right. And this is nice because 5 3/4 is easy to measure. And once you get that, you're going to take and you're going to draw 2 diagonal lines, because we've got to get 8 squares out of this. So there's one line, and there's my second line. All right, and then you're going to stitch a 1/4 of an inch away from the center. Well, I did a small 1/4 inch, or a slight, because these are so small that if you're off a little bit, then you'll end up having to make another piece to replace that one. But you can see these are all stitched on each side of that line. And before I got ready to stitch, and it doesn't matter when you do it, but instead of trying to draw a line where the center is of each block, I did a simple fold with a light press, and then I folded it the other way. And this is where you're going to end up with your 8 triangle squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then this was just the same thing of the way that it looked when you start. And then the blue is a fold line. Okay, so I tell you what, the next step on this one is to take your scissors or your rotary cutter, and you're going to cut the diagonal. So I hope you see that. I get away from the camera. And we've talked about these in some of the other videos. Triangle squares are really nice. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to cut the other one. And you can put it on a rotating board and rotate around to cut. Now remember, we have to make more. And I hope you can see it, but there is a fold right here that I had done at the very beginning. I'm going to cut that fold. And I'm going to cut another fold on this one. All right. Then I can go ahead and I can cut this one, and I can get my other, and all of a sudden I've got it's 8 neat little triangles, squares. Now, here's the part that if you have made it less than 1/4 of an inch, because you want to make sure you're not going to have to cut anymore, there's 2 ways that you can square this up, and there may be more. All I can ever tell you is what I do and how I do, and if it works or if it doesn't work. Well, I happened to find a 2.5 inch block in one of my templates, and I made dots because I lost it and I couldn't find it. All right, I'm going to take, it's got a diagonal line, and I'm going to line up my diagonal line with the diagonal part of the back. And lots of times I'd just lay it back down on the table and do it. Then I got to the point where if I had a good pair of scissors, I could hold that side, and then I could hold this side. And this is so close, I'm not going to mess with it. And all of a sudden that I've got it. Well, this is what I've got left to work with, because I'm on row 6 now. So that's all I have left of those. And they were all done that way. And that gives me an extra one in that pile. Then the black, you do the same thing. But on this one, when I did the black ones, it was how to see the lines is I actually took and used the red fabric, and the mechanical pencil showed up on it also. So that made that easy to get to. And so that's the ones that you're going to have 225 of these and 225 of these. Another way to square it up is, if you remember, I have a red line drawn on my 45 degrees. So I set my square up. Now this one's been trimmed, so we'll see how close it is. I'm going to take that red diagonal line and I'm going to set it up. I can get around this camera. And I'm going to move it until I'm lined up with that line. But both of my sides are at 2.5 and 2.5, and my keeps moving. So there it is, and you can see it fit. And you could you take a rotary cutter and cut that off that way. All right, then that just leaves. We have the big middle piece. We've got the whole bunch of little triangle squares. Then we have the pieces that are left. And for this one, these are corners that go on each block. And there are only 2 in a block, so there are 50 of them. Then there are 3, these are large, 18 1/4 inch squares. And you're going to do a diagonal 2 times. And this is one of those pieces that's really big, and you're going to be careful because that bias is going to be in there. And so handle those carefully. And then there are 4 corners when you complete the quilt, and that's made from 9 3/8 inch square with a diagonal from corner to corner. And there again you have a bias, so it's not as big as the other one, but you want to be careful with that. And what's nice is, as you're sewing and you're cutting and you're pressing, you come up with systems of the way you like to do. Some people like to do all of one part and then go to the next part. Well, I did that with the black and white centers, cream centers. But then when I got to the smaller triangles, I said, I can't do all these at one time. And then I would actually take them in the other room and sit and cut them in half, and then cut the edge off with a little plastic piece so they were 2.5 inches. But anyway, I just knew it was going to take a while to get that. All right, well, now I'm on like around the 5th row, and it has 7, I believe it's got 7 squares. And so I sat down yesterday when it got so hot outside, and I just sat and I made the strips that I would need. And so I made strips that had 4s on them for the sides, and I've used all those up because they've already been added to the remaining part of that row. So the next part that I needed to do, and it doesn't matter if you do the top or the bottom, and I always make sure that I looked at the way the directions that the pieces were supposed to go. And on the top, I'm going to make sure I've got it lined up right. All right, so in the right-hand corner, there's the red square, and opposite it, in the other corner, is the red square. And you can see the way these little points go down. The points on the left here, and on the top, you have the white going towards the border, and that helps, and you can keep up with it that way. So then I set it like that, and then I turn it down. All right, move this one. And the place that I start, because see, there's nothing else that's got to match up, but these corners need to match up. So I took and I turned one way, and I turned the other one the other way, the seam allowance. And then I made sure I had it tight. I looked at it and I said, okay, those, I can see those are touching each other. And I come in and pin it right there. And I've got that one. And then I can move down to the other end. And there again, I do the same thing. The white tended to go towards the middle and then the other color out. So I'll put that one to the left this time. And I'm going to bend this to the right and check them out. Because for some reason, it would slide sometimes. I actually did take a couple and redo that part because I didn't like the way it was. And now you can see there's material where there is give. There's nice give in there. And you can quickly tell if you've got your seams too narrow. Because if you've got a real gap right there, and it's going to mess up near the, if you don't do something about it, then all you have to do is come in. And I usually came to the middle one, but I only really had to do that once. And I took a little seam inside of that one. And then when I held it up, it looked really good. So then I just came and I pinned them down so I knew that they would all fit. And on these, I pinned them, in general, I pinned them open. There's no rule for pinning on this one and pressing it, because sometimes you're going to say, well, I'm fighting the material, trying to get it to do this. Then let it do what it wants to do. And I found that in general, the inside would want to go towards the center. I tried some that I opened them, but then when I kept going, I started doing them towards that part to the inside. And that makes that row. And I would just start over here and stitch all the way across. And you can sort of tell where you're going to hit. And especially if you have a little idea about 1/4 of an inch, and it's not going to mess anything up, if you're off just a little bit. And then you take the black one, you set it up, and you do the same thing. You've got two places that really need to meet each other. So set it in there, and I'd turn it around because this is the way I'd be working with it. All right. And you can pin that side because it's got to be there. But see, look at how much stretch I've got if I try. All right, so even though when I look at it now, and I've got this side almost set, you can see that I've got plenty of material on both sides to match up. And it's ready to stitch. And here you can see at the very top is the first row that I did. And it had 3 triangles added to it. And then when I got down to the second row, I have 3 blocks. And look at their placement and watch, because they're going to be turned. You're going to turn them to make a certain look. And then the last one down there, that black one, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think maybe the next one that I have it's got 7. The next one I have has 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of those is turned under. But this is really nice. And it's fun after doing all those little bear paws. This was a nice change, and the colors make it so much fun. And here is the box that I looked at the most. I had that sitting by my sewing machine because inevitably I would turn the things around and listen to the TV or somebody'd walk through. So that's an important piece. And here's the other one that helps you to know which way to lay your blocks. Remember that these are on point, so you have to sort of turn your body and look at it. And there's the larger triangles. And it goes all the way down, and it has 2.5 inch border on it. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching, and that's my bright video for today. I hope you enjoyed that. I tried to talk it like I did it. So I'm going to hope as I go through and write this up, if I've forgotten anything important, I will put it in the description, something that might help you. Please hit subscribe and like, and thank you for watching.